Welcome back. In this video we are going to see how we can log in the user automatically and send him directly to the main activity instead of showing him the login screen once again. And that is going to be based on whether there is a user ID for the current user. So Firebase takes care of that automatically. That's the power here. We don't need to do that ourselves, so we don't need to download a token and then store that token somewhere and all of those kind of things. But the token is generated in the backend. So it's generated on the Firebase side, so we don't need to do that. So the power is here, or what makes it easier for us is that we can just check if there is an instance for the current user, and then we can either get the user ID or we will just return an empty string. And we can then use that in order to either log in the user directly and send him directly to the main activity, or we can just send him to the login activity or the intro activity that we have here, where he can then decide to either register or log in. Okay, so let's go ahead and build the code for that. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretty much copy this code here and store it in a variable, which I'm going to call current user, which will be Firebase get instance current user. So we will use that in order to then check if the current user is null or not, because this can return null, and if it does return null, it means that there is no current user. All right, so let's go ahead and create a helper variable, which will then be the one that we will return. So I will show you what I mean in a second. So this will check if the current user is not null, because if that's the case, then go ahead and assign the current user ID the value of the current user dot UID. So you maybe remember how we used UID here just a second ago, and we had to force it, as you can see. So we had to force it with the double exclamation mark. But now we don't need to do that because we check if it's empty or not. So this time we just get the current user, and if the current user is empty, then we will return an empty string. So we will just say, well, actually, we don't even need to do that because it's going to be empty anyways, right? So now we can go ahead and return whatever current user ID is, because at that point it's either going to be an empty string or it's going to be the unique user ID, which we then of course can use in order to download the right information about the user, such as the boards that he has, the tasks that are assigned to him, and all of the user information that we have about him. Now, of course, where we want to do the sending over, so the activity intent is in our intro activity. So here is where we want to send the user either to the intro activity or to our main activity. And in the main activity, in the end, we want to have all of the different boards and everything. All right, so here what we have is the splash activity. So we don't want to go to the intro, we want to go to splash. Here we had this little handler, right? And we post, delayed, started an activity and sent the user to the intro activity. But now what we're going to do is we are going to check if the current user ID, so here current user ID, I'm going to give it the same name, and here we take the Firestore class and get the current user ID. So this will either be an empty string or it will be the user ID, so the UUID that is stored in the backend. So this number here. All right, so here we can then check if current user ID is not empty. All right, because if it's not empty, we know that we have a user that is logged in. So what we can do is we can send him directly to the main activity, in which we then will display, for example, the boards. All right, and then if we don't have a user ID, so if it's empty, then we want to send him to the intro activity, where he can then choose to either register or log in or sign in. Okay, so that is pretty much it. That's our splash activity now. It will take care of everything. It will send us over to the right activity within 2.5 seconds. So now let's test it and see if our application will directly send us to this activity instead of sending us to the login activity or the intro activity. All right, so there we are, Projet Monage, and we were sent directly to the main activity. All right, so this means that we are still logged in, and of course we would need a logout button to allow the user to log out, but we will add all of those features later on. Okay, so that was it for this video. See you in the next one.